Hello, YouTubers. This is Sunny Days, and a couple of days ago, I had a little bit of a dilemma. And with my experience, I was able to make a good judgment, which cost me a little bit more money, but I made money. But anyhow, I had a coolant leak coming from the radiator, and these plastic tanks suck. It's built for not durability and not longevity, but it's called engineering obsolescence. It's where they make sure that your part fails by a certain time to where you can buy another one or even ruin your engine and then spend even more money, and they make more money when you lose money. But anyhow, this is the brand new radiator that I put in. It is an aftermarket. Unfortunately, I don't like to go that way, but time was at an essence because I had jobs scheduled that I needed to do, and I can't do it if my truck is down. So anyhow, we're going to talk about the removal and replacement of the radiator in a Ford F-250 Superduty diesel with the 6.0. It's been a fairly decent truck. I've been running into some issues lately with parts failing, and I just replaced it myself, but save a lot of money that way. Anyhow, a radiator replacement is very easy. The hardest part is removing the trans line from the cooler at the bottom of the radiator. So we'll start up top, and this is what we'll do. We'll put a drip pan underneath the bottom of the truck to catch any fluids that might contact the ground. So you'll want to just leave your hoses connected for now, but remove these. This is just a clamp that holds the radiator. There's a post right here that slides into that. So just take this off, set it right here, take your cap screws and either put them in a magnetic dish that will hold your cap screws in there and any of your fasteners, or just screw them back in where they go and you won't lose them, because a lot of stuff, like a lot of people put stuff right here, and I'm really infamous for doing that. But anyhow, you'll end up losing hardware, and you don't want to do that, because if you notice down in there, there's a screw right there. And then there should have been one right there, but the last person that had worked on this truck before had lost one of those screws. And then so you want to do the same thing on the other side. I've got both of my screws here, so we're good there. I do have to say one thing about this is, if you replace a part, if all possible, always try to go back with the original equipment manufacturer's parts, because their parts are built exactly how the factory intended them to be, and I'm going to explain to you why. Okay, so I got my new radiator, and it is an aftermarket. It's made from Murray, and it is a one-row radiator, but the rows are very wide. They are almost the width of the core thickness. But here's one of the problems that I ran into. You see this gap right here? That should not exist, because then the fan's going to want to pull air from outside the radiator and not all of it from the front to go through and cool off those tubes. Well, the way these straps are, this is like 45 degrees. No, it's actually 90 degrees off. It should have been facing towards the front of the shroud, and then that way I could have slid my original seal on there and sealed up this gap. Now what I'm going to have to do is probably get some spray foam. Yeah, there's a gap all the way at the bottom. I can see it. I'm going to have to try to figure out how to seal that up so I can have more efficient fuel flow, because I'm going to pull this and I don't want to overheat. But anyhow, so that's the top. Then once you get the top done, with your hardware, just leave your hoses connected, because then you're going to have to go to the bottom, and you don't want to have coolant dripping on your freaking face. And always wear safety glasses when you're underneath your vehicle, when you're working on it, because dirt always falls off, and it always gets in your eye. So here's the hardest part of the whole thing, is the transcooler lines. So to remove them, you'll take your clip off. They're very easy. You take that off, and then there's a special tool that you use right here, and without it, you're not getting that trans line off unless you unscrew this whole fitting. And it's a lot easier to leave this fitting in the cooler, because on the original cooler, if you unscrewed this, it would be hell for you to get this back into your new radiator. But your new radiator should have brand new fittings on it, and it should hold the cooler in place. Otherwise, that cooler just moves around inside here, and it'd be really difficult to reuse that or to line it up. But anyhow, that tool slides in here. It unlocks a ring inside there. That way you can pull your cooler line off. And even with the correct tool, it's very hard for that to go back on there. Okay, so I just clipped that back on there. That was... Anyhow, so you got two lines. Do the same thing on each side. I suggest, because when you open up a hydraulic system, which transmission is hydrostatic, that you put some Ziploc bags on the end of the lines to keep dirt from blowing into it. You never know if it's going to be windy or what's going to happen. You just want to make sure that it's always protected. Anyhow, here's your petcock valve. You want to have an empty gallon coolant jug underneath that, inside of a drip pan, and let that drain in there, and keep an eye on it. It comes out really slow, so it takes a minute. So you could do some other stuff while you're draining, and that's always the first step, is to drain as you're working on other things if you want to save some time. But anyhow, the bottom of the radiator has a little stub on the end of it that just stabs right back into this pot. There's nothing down here holding the radiator down. You do have these little tabs right here that are on the lower part of the fan shroud. So you want to make sure that that you pop those out when you are trying to take your radiator out. Pop them out and then put them on the outside of the spot here on the radiator. Otherwise, you're going to be pulling it all out at the same time. It's really difficult. So anyhow, so that's that. Once you do that down there at the bottom, and all your coolant's drained out, collect it in your bottles and reuse your coolant if your coolant is new. Mine is fairly new because I recently did a thermostat job on this, so I had brand new coolant in there. And make sure that you buy the pre-diluted 50-50, and make sure that you use the correct coolant for your manufacturer. Mine uses the gold coolant, and that's what they use in this truck. Kind of a yellowish color. But anyhow, if you're already at it and you haven't replaced your thermostat before ever, then you can do that too. I have a video on the thermostat. I would replace that too. And then also another piece in your cooling system is this. This is a 14-pound cap, I just replaced this the same time that I did the thermostat. And then also, if you've never heard your fan clutch come on before, then the problem is going to be right here. You see that? Okay, there's a little mount right here where this clip fastens itself to. Well, sometimes those break, and then this half that goes to your fan clutch falls down, and then your fan chops it off. Now, mind you, my truck never got hot, even though the fan clutch wasn't working at all. But it did get hot when I was pulling this. I was going up a long, steady grade. Wasn't too steep, but it was steep enough where my engine started going into the red zone, and I never heard the fan come on. And I got out and looked, and I'm like, that fan should have been howling. There should have been a 1-to-1 ratio with the engine's pulley on the water pump. So that's that. So it's very easy. Once you take all the stuff off on the top, drain your radiator, remove the trans lines, remove your shroud, then you could just pull up on the radiator and it comes right out, because it, like I said, down on the bottom there's just a couple rubber grommet holes that the radiator has posts that slide into it, and that holds the bottom. These hold the top from the radiator from shaking around and hitting your fan and whatnot. So it comes right out pretty easily. You might have to get up on here because the upper radiator shroud, the fan shroud, well, actually it's the bottom part of the fan shroud. It might hang up on your it might hang up on the front of your fan clutch. So all you just do is just reach down there and it flexes, and just flex it to where it goes up and around it, and then put it all back in reverse. And then once you get everything in reverse, all buttoned up, double check everything. Make sure you got everything tight, and don't over tighten, because broken bolts really suck. And stripping things out prolongs the job and costs you more money, costs you more time. But anyhow, so when you refill, you'll refill here. Fill it up to that line. Don't go over the top of it. Start up your vehicle. Let it run for a little bit, and just keep an eye on this, and just keep refilling it back to this spot right here. It might even, the next day you might notice in the morning, just come out there and look, double check that you're getting, all the air is going to be bleeding out of your system, and air takes up space, and then so the fluid's going to take up the space that where the air was at. The air is going to leave the system. So this level will drop, and I had it drop down to here this morning, and it was the next day after I had installed everything again and had run it around a little bit, and so I filled it back up to here. I went to my job this morning, and then before I left my job I double checked it, and I had some coolant, and the coolant that I'm using, and I'm not endorsing them by any means because I'm not getting paid by anybody to do this, but this is what I bought. And right here's the F-250. Now, when you go to buy this stuff, any coolant, pay attention, because all the bottles look the same. One will say concentrated. That means that you have to do the F-250. So you'll have 2 bottles of coolant. If you want to do it, one empty bottle, and then 1 full bottle of the concentrate, and then use a funnel, hold it with your feet, hold the empty bottle with your feet, and then pour it halfway and add distilled water. Do not use tap water. Tap water has minerals and other things in it that cause electrolysis, in your engine. And what it happens is you get these little bubbles that are electrically charged, and they implode around your cylinder linings or your cylinder walls. And every time that they explode, it takes a little pit out of the outside of your piston wall or cylinder wall. And then eventually you're going to have a failure. So do not cut corners on that. Just pay attention to your bottles on what you're grabbing, because yesterday I accidentally grabbed the concentrate and it was in the same rack with the other 50-50 diluted. And that's all I got to say. I hope that you guys can save some money by tackling something like this. Very easy, very simple. And as long as you have all the right stuff, it's not going to take you much time. And it's a quick change out. So anybody can do it. Now this radiator, mind you, cost me $500, and I think it was like $547 or $515. I bought some other stuff too because I was going to leak a little bit of trans fluid, and so I wanted to have an extra bottle or two on hand and whatnot. So anyways, that's all I got to say. Talk to you later. Bye.